In a windowless shed in northern England, workers crouch in complete darkness. They light candles. Wax drips onto metal spikes. They reach into the black and pull by feel-alone stalks that grow so fast you can hear them screaming. The popping, the creaking, the sound of cells dividing in real time. By the end of this video, you will understand how a 9-square-mile patch of English farmland unlocked a technique that makes any plant sweeter, more tender, and infinitely more flavorful. Welcome back to Gardened Explained with Harry. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Walk into any forcing shed in Yorkshire during January. Your eyes adjust slowly. The air feels thick and warm and earthy. Somewhere in the darkness, you hear it. A faint crackling, a soft pop, another pop. The sound is not machinery. It is not workers moving. It is the sound of plants growing so desperately fast that their cells audibly stretch and snap as they reach for light that does not exist. This technique is called forcing. The scientific term is etiolation. It means growing crops in complete darkness or extremely low light to stop chlorophyll production. Without chlorophyll, something strange happens. The plant panics. It stretches upward, frantically searching for sunlight. And in that desperate search, it transforms. Here is what happens inside the plant. In a normal garden, sunlight hits leaves. The leaves produce chlorophyll. Chlorophyll turns carbon dioxide into glucose. The plant uses that glucose to grow more leaves, more stems, more structure. Energy flows outward. But in total darkness, this process reverses. The plant cannot make new energy, so it starts consuming itself. 2 years of stored carbohydrates sit locked inside the roots. In the forcing sheds, that stored carbohydrate transforms into glucose. The sweet glucose that would normally build huge bitter leaves instead gets pumped directly into the stalks. The result is sweetness born from starvation, tenderness created by terror, flavor extracted from the dark. The stalks grow at fairy tale speed, under the right conditions. I'm beside they can grow more than an inch per day. Some farmers report plants reaching 2 feet tall in just 4 weeks. The growth is so rapid that it creates sound. Stalks brush against each other. Stems groan toward an obscured sun. Leaf buds unfold so forcefully that the cave-like rooms fill with a low and gentle cacophony of growing pains. From a taste perspective, the difference is unmistakable. Forced produce is sweeter and less stringy than normal varieties. It is tender and far less acidic. The cells have not built up the tough, fibrous walls that outdoor growing creates. Premium forced stalks develop a remarkable natural sweetness that requires 40% less sugar in cooking than standard varieties. 40%. That single number explains why chefs pay premium prices for produce grown in complete darkness. The transformation also changes the chemistry. Outdoor plants build up oxalic acid as a defense mechanism against pests and harsh conditions. Forcing dramatically reduces this. The result tastes sweeter and less sour because there is genuinely less acid present in the tissue. Darkness does not just change the texture, it changes the fundamental chemistry of the plant. Now here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. This technique that sounds like something from a science fiction novel was discovered completely by accident over 200 years ago. The year was 1817. The setting was the Chelsea Physic Garden in London. This botanical yard had been founded in 1673 by the Worshipful Society of Apothecaries. For over a century, it served as a living library of medicinal plants. Researchers studied specimens from around the world. Nobody expected a revolution to begin with a dropped bucket. According to legend, a horticulturalist accidentally knocked a bucket over a plant. He forgot about it. A few weeks later, he discovered something bizarre. The plant had responded to the darkness by growing blindingly fast. The stalks shot up dead straight in an unnerving shade of pink. When he tasted them, he realized they were not only prettier, they tasted dramatically better. The plant was rhubarb, and this accidental discovery would transform British agriculture. Rhubarb itself has ancient origins. It grew from Siberia to China as far back as 2700 BC. Chinese physicians used it for healing properties. Traders transported it along the Silk Road to Italy in the 13th century. Marco Polo himself helped bring it to Europe. The name derives from the Latin expression rhem barbarum, meaning the barbarian from the banks of the river Volga. The cost of transportation across Asia made rhubarb expensive in medieval Europe. It was several times the price of other valuable herbs and spices. In the 1500s, traditional rhubarb cost more than opium or saffron. Physicians prescribed it for digestive ailments. It appeared in royal apothecaries across the continent, but nobody had discovered the forcing technique that would unlock its true potential. After the Chelsea Physic Garden discovery, word spread slowly through English farming communities. By 1877, farmers in Yorkshire had taken up the practice in earnest. Yorkshire was already a rhubarb growing region, but three factors made it perfect for forcing. First, the climate. Yorkshire winters provided the cold temperatures that rhubarb roots need to trigger regrowth. When rhubarb experiences enough cold, the plant produces hormones called gibberellins. These hormones affect the plant's development and prepare it for the rapid growth that forcing requires. The frost acts like a starting gun. Without it, the technique fails. Second, cheap coal. The coal fields of Yorkshire provided abundant fuel to heat the forcing sheds. Maintaining warm temperatures in complete darkness required constant heat. Coal made this economically viable at industrial scale. Third, the textile mills. Yorkshire's wool industry provided a secret ingredient called shoddy. This was waste woolen cloth and clippings from the mills. Farmers discovered that shoddy made exceptional mulch. It was packed full of nitrogen and cost almost nothing because it was industrial waste. The nitrogen supercharged the rhubarb roots during their field-growing years. When those roots entered the forcing sheds, they contained maximum stored energy ready for conversion. The forcing process follows a precise timeline. Plants spend 2 years in the fields without being harvested. During those years, sunlight hits the leaves. Chlorophyll produces glucose. The plant stores that energy in its roots as carbohydrates. The farmer watches and waits while the roots grow fat with potential. In November, workers dig up the roots and subject them to frost. The cold triggers the hormonal changes needed for regrowth. Then the roots move into forcing sheds where they sit in complete darkness. The sheds maintain warm temperatures. The roots sense warmth but no light. They conclude that something has gone wrong and begin their desperate search for sun. The plant does not know it is in a shed. It believes it is buried. It believes it must reach the surface or die. So it grows. It converts every calorie of stored carbohydrate into vertical motion. The stalks stretch upward. The color shifts to vibrant pink and pale yellow because no chlorophyll forms without light. The texture stays tender because the plant never builds the tough cell walls needed for outdoor survival. It is not even safe to turn the lights on for long enough to harvest the plant. Farmers do it by flickering candlelight. The leaves can start turning green within an hour or so of light exposure. Even brief illumination triggers chlorophyll production that dulls the vibrant pink pigmentation and begins toughening the texture. So workers crouch in low-ceilinged sheds. They snap the stalks gently from the crown. They work by feel in near total darkness. Candles provide just enough glow to avoid damaging the precious crop. At its peak, this region produced 90% of the world's winter forced rhubarb. The area became known as the Rhubarb Triangle. It spans 9 square miles between the towns of Wakefield, Morley, and Rothwell in West Yorkshire. A special express train called the Rhubarb Express was run by the Great Northern Railway Company from Ardsley Station every weekday night during the forced rhubarb season. The season runs from Christmas until Easter. Up to 200 tons of rhubarb sent by up to 200 growers was carried daily at peak production before 1939. The Rhubarb Express departed Yorkshire in darkness and arrived at London's Covent Garden Market before dawn. Hotels and restaurants across the capital depended on this delivery. During the winter months, when no fresh fruit grew in England, forced rhubarb was the only option. Families made crumbles, jams, and desserts. The pink stalks brightened gray January tables across the nation. By the 1930s, the number of forced rhubarb growers in Yorkshire's Rhubarb Triangle had ballooned to about 200. The industry employed thousands. The forcing sheds dotted the landscape like dark monasteries. Inside each one, candles flickered while workers harvested screaming plants. Then, World War II changed everything. During the war, the government set regulations to restrict the price of rhubarb to just 1 shilling per pound. The goal was to make it accessible to more people during rationing. Throughout the war years, families relied on rhubarb for vitamins and sweetness when other fruits were unavailable. The nation ate rhubarb constantly. Every meal seemed to end with rhubarb crumble or rhubarb fool or rhubarb jam. At the time, nobody guessed this government-sponsored explosion in use would bring the rhubarb industry to the brink of destruction. By the end of the Second World War, everybody was tired of it. An entire generation associated rhubarb with rationing and hardship. The taste reminded them of difficult years. When peace returned, they wanted anything else. The decline accelerated in the 1970s and the 1980s when supermarkets began importing exotic fruit during winter. Before that, forced rhubarb was the only real option during cold months. But suddenly, consumers could buy oranges from Spain, bananas from the tropics, strawberries from greenhouses. The unique position that forced rhubarb had held for a century disappeared overnight. The collapse was devastating. One Yorkshire farmer described the change in stark numbers. In the 1950s and the 1960s, his family used to sell 25,000 boxes of rhubarb. By the 1980s and the 1990s, this had dropped to 1,000. The 200 growers diminished to about 12. 40 years ago, over 70 families grew the crop. Today, fewer than a dozen keep the tradition alive. In 2010, Yorkshire forced rhubarb received Protected Designation of Origin status from the European Commission. This placed it alongside champagne and Parma ham as a protected regional delicacy. The recognition acknowledged that true forced rhubarb can only come from this specific geographic area with its unique combination of climate, soil, and traditional knowledge. But climate change now threatens even this protected status. Rhubarb must accumulate a minimum number of cold units in the field to trigger regrowth. With soil temperatures rising, it becomes increasingly difficult to grow. Yorkshire farmers report the changes directly. Years ago, they used to fetch the roots in from outside in October and pick them in December. Now it is too mild for the roots to go dormant until early December. The harvest keeps pushing back. The windows keep shrinking. The technique itself, however, belongs to no one. And this is the part that matters for anyone watching with a garden. Rhubarb is not the only plant that responds this way. Other plants like sea kale, asparagus, and endive can also be forced. The same principle applies. Deprive a plant of light, force it to consume stored energy, and harvest the tender, sweet results. The Victorian farmers of Yorkshire did not invent a rhubarb technique. They discovered a universal truth about plant biology. You can start forcing rhubarb between December and March when the crown is dormant. Choose a mature crown at least 2 years old. The plant needs those years to store enough carbohydrate in its roots. A young plant lacks the energy reserves to survive the forcing process. You do not need an expensive forcing shed. You can use special rhubarb forcers, which are large terracotta bell-shaped containers. Or you can use an ordinary bucket, a garbage bin, or any opaque container large enough to cover the crown. Block any holes or gaps so no light can get in. Place a layer of straw around the outside to insulate it. Warmth speeds the process. A temperature around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius produces the speediest crop. Allow the plant to grow in darkness for about 8 weeks before harvesting. The plant will reach out in search of light, producing smooth, pale stems in the process. The warmer it is, the quicker the stems will grow upward. You will know they are ready when they reach about 30 centimeters tall. One important warning: forcing exhausts the plant completely. By the end of March, the harvest is over and the rootstock is totally exhausted and used for compost. Never force the same crown in consecutive years. Let it recover in the open garden for at least 2 years before forcing again. Some gardeners maintain multiple crowns on rotation so they can force some while others recover. The nutritional benefits make this effort worthwhile. Rhubarb is a good source of fiber, and it contains moderate levels of vitamin C. It contains calcium as well as notable amounts of vitamin K. This nutrient protects against bone fractures as we age, and it protects against neurological damage linked to Alzheimer's disease. Forced rhubarb has a different chemical profile, and it is particularly high in antioxidant anthocyanins. These compounds give it that delightful pink color, and they provide additional health benefits. Compare the two products side by side. Outdoor rhubarb is a bit stringy, wooden, and sour. Forced rhubarb is much more tender. The forcing process produces stalks that are sweeter, more intensely flavored, and less fibrous than anything grown in sunlight. It needs 40% less sugar in any recipe. That number keeps returning because it represents a real, measurable transformation. The technique works because darkness forces the plant to sacrifice itself. 2 years of stored sunlight are converted to sugar, and that sugar is pumped into stalks that will never see the light that created them. The roots give everything they have. They exhaust themselves completely. For those weeks of candlelit harvest, you get something field-grown produce can never provide. Sweetness born from desperation, tenderness from terror, flavor extracted from the dark. That bucket dropped over a plant in 1817 accidentally proves something we still have not fully absorbed. Sometimes the path to sweetness runs through complete darkness. Subscribe and watch the next video to discover more secrets hidden beneath nature.